Welcome back to CJ Sports. Today is Monday, May 3rd, gearing up for Star Wars Day. But of course, first, we got to talk some sports. So we're going to jump right in. And Jake, you take us away with our final draft thoughts.
So some draft thoughts from a Cowboys fan perspective. Overall with the draft, nothing too shocking. Very defensive heavy for the Cowboys, which they had kind of come out saying that it was going to be a pretty defensive heavy draft. Took a few offensive linemen and a wide receiver in there, but nothing super stands out except for their first pick in the fourth round, because they had, I believe, two. Might have been three, but I'm pretty sure it was just two. They took linebacker Jabril Cox, who was a stud at North Dakota State and then transferred to LSU his senior year and just absolutely dominated in pass coverage. Not much of a run stopper, but that's okay. Dallas has a lot of run stoppers. And really, it's been a lot of the passing game that they've struggled and covering and guys and stuff like that. So especially in the linebacker position, because the guys that have there are more run stoppers than anything. But Jabril Cox is going to be a really good guy to rotate with both Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith, whichever kind of defense scheme that Dan Quinn decides to do. But yeah.
I mean, at least your GM knows what a linebacker is.
You would think so, drafting two of them in the first few rounds. So.
Well, I mean, ours just let our only middle linebacker go to New York last year. But
hey, that's all right. You figure it out.
Guess we don't need a middle linebacker. Yeah. The Cowboys, I think, had kind of just a modest draft. Nothing that jumps off the page. Nothing that is like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing?
Exactly. They addressed the apparent needs, but also kind of figuring stuff out, because there's a lot of guys that need about a year or two to kind of develop.
Yeah. So for the Packers, I mean, overall, they addressed all the problem areas as far as positions, with the exception of linebacker. I felt like was kind of an afterthought there in the later rounds, but okay. I will say the first two picks I felt were kind of a reach, and honestly, at the times that they made them, I don't know that they were the best at that position on the board, which is interesting because I know they do interviews. So I'm curious to know what Brian Goose, again, because I can't say his last name, thought about interviews that made him choose those guys over who I thought on paper looked like a better at that position. So in the case of the cornerback and then the center in the second round, but not horrible picks. I just think both those guys could have got picked a round later.
Right.
But the one that does stand off the page is our third round pick. Honestly, when we traded up in the third round, I was like, what are we doing? Right. But you get Amari Rodgers by trading up in the third round, which I think is a great wide receiver pick. I'm not big on first round wide receivers. And so trading up to get him in the third, I think was a good move. Unfortunately, the jury's still out on whether or not Aaron Rodgers is coming back to Green Bay. So will we ever get to see A-Rod to A-Rod? I don't know. But it's a possibility right now, and that's kind of exciting. And there's been some rumbles about Jake Kumaro again, as it's interesting because I saw someone tweet today, what's to be said about a wide receiver who was on a practice squad on the roster, like fringe guy who got cut by the Packers and then went to the Bills and got cut by the Bills, and now Rodgers has always wanted him back. Do we go sign him to try to smooth things over with Rodgers, or is he a fringe guy that who cares?
Yeah.
What do you do? Which I don't think there's any harm to bring him in for, stuff over the summer training camp. But when it comes down to cutting, keep the best guy, not the guy that Rodgers stomps around for.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, the whole weekend was just kind of clouded as a Packers fan of what's Rodgers going to do? Like, who cares about this draft? Doesn't even matter right now. We just need to know whether we have Aaron Rodgers next year. Or is he just going to retire because the Packers seem to refuse to trade him? Don't know. I get it, but I don't get it. Like, if the guy's going to sit there and refuse to play for you, why not get another quarterback that has some seasons behind him and can, maybe not as good as Aaron Rodgers, but can get you to the playoffs for sure in that division. Yeah, all you got to need is a guy in the top half of the quarterbacks, and you can get to the playoffs easy.
Yeah, I mean, Minnesota put something together with Kirk Cousins back in 2018.
Right.
But, yeah, I get that. The biggest problem with trading Rodgers is if you do it before June, it's like a $40 million price tag.
Yeah.
That still hits your cap. If you do it after June, it's like 21 this year and 19 next year or something.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I mean, from a business standpoint, do you really take a $40 million hit just to move on from a guy? You better get something pretty good in return, like a couple first-round picks.
Oh, I mean, freaking the 49ers, if that trade offer is legit, like that's what they actually offered, that's a pretty decent trade. Like, I think both teams win in that scenario. Like, 49ers get one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and the Packers in return get still a really good quarterback, and then some solid draft picks. Like, I don't get why you say no to that, no matter who the player is. Like, he's not the guy. He's not a young guy that you want to submit as the guy for the next 5-6 years. He's been there, done that.
I think their problem is, one, they're avoiding trading in the conference as a whole. It seems like compound that with the Packers play the 49ers for what feels like the 5th year in a row this year, because we're playing the entire West.
That's fair.
So I think they're avoiding everyone on our 17-game schedule. And so if you play the Packers this year, I don't think you're going to get Aaron Rodgers. The Broncos and the Raiders seem like the front runners there as far as who the Packers might actually consider trading to, which, what do the Broncos offer us? 3 quarterbacks?
Yeah, nothing, pretty much nothingness.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a whole, like you said, it overshadowed the entire draft as a Packers fan, to the point where I'm sitting there thinking, do I want them to draft what's best for the team, or do I want them to draft what is going to smooth it over with Rodgers? And to me, they kind of balanced the two this weekend. They drafted what the team needed.
Yeah. But
maybe they weren't planning on moving up to get Amari Rodgers, and we're just going to take whoever fell to them 4 picks later. So what decision did they actually make? I don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not in the room where it happens. So.
Yeah, that's pretty fair.
You like that subtle Hamilton reference?
A little bit. Pretty good.
There's some people who are just now getting what I did there. But that's okay. I've only seen it way too many times on Disney Plus and saw it in Oklahoma City. But nonetheless, that's the draft. The draft is over. We'll see what these guys do in training camp and be able to move from there. I don't remember what team is getting Hard Knocks this year, but I'm sure we'll get overly excited about those teams, as I always do watching it, because I really thought the Chargers were going to put together a team this year. They're looking good for next year. They're moving up.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
We'll see.
Next, still on the NFL, to kind of wrap up NFL news, at least for a few weeks probably. NFL, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks, made some rule changes, onside kick rules, things like that. But most interesting to me is the number change rule. So commonly joked as the No Fun League is opening up jersey numbers to more people. Now, the purpose of jersey numbers in the NFL, as many listening know, is to make it easier for refs to know if people are lined up inappropriately. Are all the guys in the 60s and 70s covered up by somebody else on the line, things like that.
Right.
But they've opened it up. Single digit numbers, I think, are the biggest news story here as far as number changes for wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. Really, my biggest thing here is one of the benefits of being a punter or kicker is, outside of the quarterback and the backup quarterback, you're like, get top priority of those low numbers, those single digit numbers. So now as a punter, what are we going to start wearing? 99, because all these wide receivers want 1 through 6.
I mean, yeah, it's possible. I mean, and two, something else to think about too is it opens it up for linebackers as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so that'll be interesting to see like if any linebackers, because in college it's like almost no number rules.
Right.
They have some, I believe, but it's not very restricted at all. Because you see defensive ends wearing number 2.
Yeah.
But then you have, it's going to be interesting to see if there's a linebacker that decides to be like number 12 going up against. I wait for the day that one of these rookies takes the number 12 and then lines up against Tom Brady.
Yep.
Who had like the biggest reaction to all this, it seems, of all the pros. He was just like, oh, now I got to learn a whole new scheme and like I got to figure out who's what. It's like, dude, the guy's going to line up in the same spot he's always lined up in. The defensive schemes don't change, their numbers change. And so while I get it,
well,
watching tape and stuff like that's going to be different, but I don't think it changes much, honestly.
Yeah, watching tape might change, but in a pre-snap stance, is a quarterback really seeing the numbers on anybody on the defense's jersey except maybe corners and safeties?
Right now, dude, because the linebackers are like hunched over. You can see their chest kind of, but like you barely look at their number. You're looking at their eyes to see what they're gonna do. Like, I don't know, whatever. Like, it'll be interesting to see like some fun combinations, like if a tight end selects number 2 or something.
Yeah.
That would be kind of
interesting. I haven't seen any big name like players state, I'm changing numbers. I think maybe I saw a tweet about DeAndre Hopkins or somebody saying bringing 6 back like LeBron James or something like that.
Okay.
But other than that, I haven't seen any like established NFL players be like, hey, I'm changing a number now. But a lot of these rookies, if you're paying attention this weekend, a lot of them are keeping their college numbers now that they can.
Right.
And so I think that it'll be kind of a slow thing. People who have already established, especially if you're a big name, if you're being sold in the, team store during football games, you're probably not changing your number.
Right.
I saw something that for those types of guys, quarterbacks, linebackers, safeties, even the guys that sell T-shirts and jerseys on a regular basis, it would cost the team like tens of thousands of dollars to change their number based in projected already pre-printed shirts and jerseys and stuff with their old number on it that they would have to reprint.
Yeah, and I think I saw something, maybe it was Pat McAfee, they were talking about it when it first came out, and I think one of the guys that had previously mentioned that he didn't like the fact that he had to have his number was Alvin Kamara. Has the number 44. I don't know whether that was just given to him or he chose it based on the rules, but like apparently he had talked about buying out all his jerseys so he could then have a new number, which is an interesting concept. Don't know why that. Like one of the guys on that show brought up, why don't they just give the already printed jerseys to like, donate them like they do with Super Bowl T-shirts and World Series shirts. Both teams are printed, like because you don't know who's going to win, and so especially with the Super Bowl, and so you're half of the stuff they make just gets donated to different countries that need clothes.
Well, yeah, like that's an option, but like also the dude still wore the number for multiple years. Like people might still want it. Like, yeah, you're gonna have to discount it, but you should be able to break even or make a profit on that selling it discounted in the store of, hey, you can still get an Alvin Kamara jersey in 44 and in number 4 or whatever he picks. Like
right.
Or do it 2-for-1 special. You buy his new one, you get his old one. I don't know.
Hey, that's honestly not a bad deal. And the thing is, if the NFL wants to make like a good stance, like, and do something good, because a lot of people don't like what they do. Like you said, there's the no fun league. Like, why not do something like positive PR? Like, oh, all these players that are, like I said, all these players that are changing their number, what we're going to do is that for 2 weeks, they'll be on sale for 50%. The rest are going to be donated to charities.
Or just when the next time these teams go into hospitals or into, these different communities where they serve, like take a box of jerseys and give them to these people
exactly.
who maybe otherwise, would have to decide, do I want to eat, do I want a jersey or do I want to buy something that might be more reasonable because they don't just have the money to go spend on a $150 jersey.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't even have money to spend on a $150 jersey. I use eBay and buy them secondhand.
Right. Yeah,
that's why most of my jerseys are retired, guys.
No, I always end up giving in. I'm too weak.
Yeah.
But I guess with that, we both of us cool with the number change. Definitely gonna be interesting the next 4 or 5 years to see the differences between the old guys and the new guys coming in. What they decide to do with their jerseys. It'll be funny for sure.
I mean, hold on. Well, so we said Tom Brady needs to just get over it, but he does get confused on 3rd versus 4th down. So maybe numbers really do throw him off there in the secondary.
You said it, not me. You said it, not me.
It was against the Bears, right? 4th.
Anyway, we'll use the subject of numbers to move on to a brand new segment that we're going to have every week. It's a segment we're going to call By the Numbers. Basically, we're going to take a look at each number in sports. So this week, we're going to start with 00 and 0 because the number of guys that have worn those two numbers in all of sports is so small compared to literally every other number. And so we'll go back and forth, say it's like some guys that are notable and then our favorites. So for me, a notable guy, Jim Otto in the NFL, he wore the number 00, the one of like 4 guys to ever wear it. And he's in the Hall of Fame as the only guy to ever wear the number 00. Was a center for the Raiders back in
60 to 75.
Yeah. So back in the 60s, early 70s. Solid player, cemented himself enough to, be a Hall of Famer, and a good player overall.
And then the No Fun League had to make him change his number to 50, like 10 years in.
Yeah, and whatever. But I'll keep going to some other guys to mention. Bobby Bonds. He was better known as the father of Barry Bonds. Bobby Bonds was an outfielder, and he didn't put up like outrageous numbers, but at the same time, he was still in the league for about 10 years and like was a solid player for the most part, like a good defensive outfielder, and just could give you like 30 home runs a season with like 90 runs scored, and like just a solid player, like a guy that you're not going to be upset about on your team. But for my favorite player, and this is a guy that probably no one knows about, or if you do know about him, he's pretty cool, but like he's not that great of a player, unfortunately. Just hasn't had too much luck. Delano DeShields Jr. He has been, so you have no idea who that is. And if you haven't been a Texas Rangers fan for the past 5 years or so, you don't know who he is. He was like supposed to be the next great center fielder for the Rangers. Had a terrific rookie season, even named like AL Rookie of the Month in like May or something, his rookie season. And then just from there was never super consistent. A lot of strikeouts, not a lot of hits. A really good base stealer, but that's all he was really. A really good defensive center fielder and like a solid runner, but couldn't prove it with the bat. He's still on the team. He's in the organization. But just unfortunately, he hasn't been able to really put it together. So he's just kind of stuck. Well, I don't know what's going to happen to him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's really interesting. These 0 and 00 guys are, I think you said it a few weeks ago as we were talking about this. They're just a different breed, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. They got a certain charisma about them.
And that's where, my 3 kind of just notable mentions, not my favorite ones to wear it, but definitely shows like I'm a millennial and maybe even that I live in an NBA city. I don't know. But my three notables are Carmelo Anthony, Damian Lillard, and Russell Westbrook, of course, being from Oklahoma City.
Of course. Got to name Westbrook.
Hey, got to throw him down, you know. What does he wear? 4 now in Washington?
Something like that. I don't even know.
I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, those are all guys that I feel like, you know, you can argue Russell Westbrook versus Damian Lillard, and basically that depends on, are you from Oklahoma City or are you not, on who you put first. That's about the whole argument there on those three. But really just overall, I mean, basketball, even when I didn't follow it, and I still don't follow it very well, those are guys that I heard talked about, right? No matter what. And that, I don't know, it feels like a very kind of millennial and even going into Gen Z kind of thing for basketball to be so huge. And I think for it is like the older millennials grew up watching, you know, Michael Jordan, and then transitioning into the early 2000s of Kobe Bryant and then LeBron James. And now you've got all these super teams that have come about, and just kind of been the millennials, right? Like, and you know, a lot of those guys are probably Gen Xers, but like as millennials, we're sitting there watching them as, you know, 7-year-olds. So it's really cool. You know, it's just like growing up watching Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, like all those guys in the NFL that, you know, I was 6 years old and these guys are out there playing football. And it's sad to see some of the last ones retire now. We still got Big Ben hanging on for dear life. Literally. But my number one, I actually, you know, I struggled to decide between the NFL and the NHL on this. So you already mentioned Jim Otto. I just think, yeah, it's kind of cool. He's like one of the few, and to be on the offensive line wearing 0-0, it's pretty cool. And he played for 15 seasons at Las Vegas, started all the games, and was their only starting center all 15 years. And so he was there year one of the Las Vegas Raiders, 1960. So I think that's pretty cool for him too. But honestly, just for the uniqueness of it, NHL, and I got to read this, otherwise I'll, you know, relay it a little bit wrong. But this guy, Neil Sheehy, I think is how you say it, Sheehy. I don't know how you'd say that. He wore number 0 for the Hartford Whalers. He was a defenseman, and in 1988, the only NHL player to ever score a goal while wearing the number 0. Still the only one to date. And that's just really cool. I think we were looking at it, and what were there, like a total of 5 or 6 guys who were 0 or 0-0 in the NHL?
No, he was the only one.
Oh, the only one. So he's the only one at 0, but there's like 4 guys who wore 0-0. There's a goalie at least. So yeah, first of all, one of very few, but he played for like 1 season, scored 1 goal, and now is the only one in history to score a goal in the number 0. So I guess somebody else is going to have to change their number to 0 to break that. But I just think that's like a cool tidbit, you know?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's, you know, he's in the history books as the only guy to wear 0 and score a goal. So
yeah, but yeah, that's just pretty cool. I do like this segment. I think it's cool to look at and try to find, you know, these unique stories based on what number they wore.
Right.
And something I've committed to, and I think we talked about this, is we're going to try to avoid like picking our favorite as the blatant obvious. Like, we're not going to get to 23 and pick Michael Jordan, or we're not going to get to 12 and pick Tom Brady, or Aaron Rodgers, or Andrew Luck, or Ben Roethlisberger, or I don't know who else wears. No, Ben Roethlisberger wears 7. Who am I thinking of? The old Steelers quarterback. He's on.
Terry.
Terry Bradshaw.
Terry Bradshaw. Yeah.
We're going to try to find more unique things than just picking and grabbing whoever right there off the top. That's too easy.
Yeah. And so, you know, as we go through this, let us know what are your favorite players that have worn the numbers, each number we go through. You know, like Clay said, when we get to number 12, it's going to be really interesting. 23 will be interesting, like 24, 42. A lot of like the big notable, like, I'm going to tell myself I can't pick Jackie Robinson when we get to 42. But definitely a lot of guys that will be very interesting to see, like who everyone thinks like their favorite player is. I picked Delano Shields, and you picked Sheehy in the NHL, a guy I didn't even know existed until just now. So, yeah, guys, let us know your favorites, and we will see you next time.
All right. See you out. Pew, pew.